Hi, everybody. My name is Liz, and after reviewing this week's material, I just wanted to talk a little bit about racial identity. I would say I can highly relate to the minority framework. My parents are both immigrants from Mexico, and my dad came here at a very young age. He was very quick to assimilate to the culture here, and it was important for him that his children also assimilated. And so we were told at a very young age that it's important to speak English. It was important to make sure that everything that we did kind of followed the American culture, which I think really changed the way I looked at my racial identity. Um, because at home with my dad, we spoke English, um, and my mom was very proud of her culture, so we would speak Spanish to her and do all of the Mexican culture and everything with my mom, and the American stuff with my dad. So it was a confusing time, I would say. As I got a little bit older, I started to really figure out who I was and where I belonged. Um, and I think looking back at it now, um, and the way my dad wanted his life to be, um, there was a lot of different things that played a role in helping me figure that out. So my school was a it was in a small town, so there was a lot of white kids there. Um, there was also like the neighborhood that my parents had picked to live in. There was a lot of white neighbor like the neighborhood was white, and um, the friends that I made were white because of that situation. So I would say that my dad definitely had a role in how I identify, and almost even manifested all the things that gave um, my life some kind of meaning towards racial identity. Um, yeah, and as we've grown up, my sister and I have talked through some of those things, and I think that we both agree that we were, I guess the term is whitewashed, um, the slang term anyway. But it was because my dad wanted to make sure that we fit into society the way he wanted us to fit in. Um, as far as institutionalized racism, I am sure I've experienced institutionalized racism a lot in a lot of different ways. But what really stands out was when I was working for the county. I had worked really hard to kind of move up in the county. I had been there for 3 to 4 years before I had really decided that I wanted to continue my role in like a leadership role. Um, so I started the path. I did what people had asked me to do. I took on more projects. I stood out. I helped more people. I was more of a took more of a coaching role in the sense, and was starting to apply for different positions. I started to realize that I wasn't getting picked for even a second round of interviews in different places. Um, and I would try to move around and try to show what I was made of, and I still wasn't getting promoted. And then the last time that I did apply for a position in that, I realized that middle management and upper management were white. Specifically, the director for our DHS program was a white male. So I started to realize that maybe it wasn't just my skills that they were looking at, but rather my identity too. So I went outside of the agency and applied at different places. I did actually get a management job at a different agency, which they told me I was highly qualified for. Um, and again, it just solidified what I had thought. So I know there's been probably other situations, but that one stands out the most to me because it really made me consider how even employment can have an impact, like have racism can have an impact on employment. And I thought that maybe I was in an agency that didn't have that, but just looking at the hierarchy, there wasn't much diversity or um, different. There was, it's a career that is mostly women, yet a man is the one that's a director in it. So definitely made me think about um, how racism and different prejudice can be seen in employment places. So, um, so that was really hard to take in, and so that's why I chose that example to share. I was in early adulthood, so I was in my early 20s, um, going into 30, and then I think that in that point in my life, I was trying to create some closeness and a sense of belonging amongst my colleagues, and I never really had the opportunity to do that because I never really felt accepted, and I felt like I was an outsider um, a lot of the time because I was a senior caseworker, or however you want to put it, and yet I wasn't, and all my friends were getting promoted, and I wasn't. And so that's why that I think affected me. Um, in Erikson's psychosocial stages of development, I would definitely say that I was in that intimacy state and wanted to find that closeness. And that was really difficult for me to do when I had a situation like that. Looking back at it, though, I don't know if I would respond differently to the situation. I think I needed to get out of child protection to see what I was made of and have an opportunity to even be in a supervisor role. So I'm glad that I took the step that I did to look outside of um, child protection. But I do think that it changed how I saw the world a little bit. And so what I did gain from this situation was I gained an opportunity at different agency where I was asking more questions and I raised awareness about racial disparities, especially in supervisory roles. And so I was quick to let people know, like, there's not a lot of diversity in leadership roles here. How do we change that? I was more invested in taking these things more seriously and examining what oppression meant and how to fight it in a way that actually made change. And so I started talking to different people and got into a training about oppression that really opened my eyes to what it looks like. And I think with the critical race theory, it really does show that racial inequality is just built into our structures, and oppression has been in our society for so long that I feel like sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing it. I took a training about white supremacy, and it really helped me understand that the structures are built the way they are, and it's hard to break oppression unless you dive deep and go into the very beginnings of it. And so I think that's my thought on how to fight racial inequality, um, especially because it's so embedded with us that in order to make a change, I think we really do need to start from the beginning and figure out how we got here and how we want to move forward. So that is my thoughts on institutional racism and critical race theory. Thanks for listening.